Are you searching for the best in online black radio? Then go to blacktalkradionetwork.com, helping you filter through the noise. Real talk, black talk.
The internet is full of half-truths and all-out lies. We've all seen them, and many people on social media complaining about it. Here's your chance to show and prove. WorldAfropedia.com is a black-owned and operated encyclopedia. There are several thousand articles, but we need help. We can't uncover all the truth ourselves. So please, join us and become a writer, editor, or blogger for WorldAfropedia.com today. Every little bit counts. We owe it to the future generations to put the truth out there. Visit WorldAfropedia.com, the African-centered encyclopedia, a global database of African knowledge for the purpose of bringing about global African wisdom and understanding. WorldAfropedia.com.
So in 2014, in September, Charlo Greene made headlines when she quit on air. Let's take a look at this clip.
Now, everything you heard is why I, the actual owner of the Alaska Cannabis Club, will be dedicating all of my energy toward fighting for freedom and fairness, which begins with legalizing marijuana here in Alaska. And as for this job, well, not that I have a choice, but fuck it, I quit.
So as you saw from that clip, Greene ended her segment on marijuana by revealing that she was a proponent of legalization and was the owner of the Alaskan Cannabis Club, which was the subject of her actual news report. But since this has happened, she's actually facing some charges. The state launched a series of undercover operation and raids at her club, ultimately charging her with 14 serious criminal offenses of misconduct involving a controlled substance. She has said on these charges that it's almost dizzying when you try to make sense of it. It could literally cost me the rest of my adult life. These charges could add up to 54 years in prison. So people who are commenting on this say that it's interesting that the charges against Greene, who is black, are particularly alarming given the government's history of disproportionately targeting people of color for minor marijuana offenses with tough-on-crime policies that fueled mass incarceration. So I want to get a reaction from you guys. Do you think that this is worth it, I guess, because it's worth to note that pot was legalized in Alaska in November of 2014. So her story broke in September, and now she's facing these charges because they were saying basically that she got a little bit ahead of herself. Cynthia Franklin, the director of the state's Alcohol and Marijuana Control Office, said that Greene's club and 2 other businesses are facing consequences for launching before regulations were in place. These people got ahead and said, we're not going to wait. So that is the defense that they are saying why they are coming after this woman. To me, it does seem disproportionate. Would you agree?
Yeah, 54 years in prison for this? Are you kidding me right now? No, this is a perfect example of what the country has done with mass incarceration and how they specifically targeted certain groups of people, minorities, black people especially. This is insane, right? Okay, so she broke some laws. You want to give her a citation? You want some community service? You want her to pay a fine? I get it. She got ahead of herself, right? But this is involving a substance that can't kill you. This is involving a substance that was eventually legalized in the state a month later or 2 months later. What are we having a conversation about? Is she a violent criminal that should be put behind bars because she's a threat to society? No, absolutely not. This makes me so angry. It's a waste of resources. For all the taxpayers in Alaska, you're going to be paying for this. You pay for this, okay? Your tax money is going to this garbage instead of paying for the schools that your kids are going to, instead of paying for the infrastructure in your state or your city. Like, this is insane. It makes me beyond angry, and I hope that, she somehow gets some justice in this case, because she does not deserve to be behind bars. She just doesn't.
Yeah, it's obviously political. It's a vendetta. I mean, the fact that it's legal now, it's like, like you said, they should give her a fine or something if they really want to make an example out of her. Give her the fine, move on. And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about like all this white-collar crime. You got the guy at Wells Fargo who was overseeing all the scam that they were pulling, and now they've said that he's not getting his bonuses or something. He's not going to get his several millions of dollars. But there's no prosecution of him. There's no prosecution of any of the bankers and what they did. And this girl had a pot shop a couple months before the pot shops were legal.
Good for her.
Really?
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. We have an epidemic of heroin addiction in the country right now, and the main reason why is because pharmaceutical companies kept pushing doctors and convincing doctors to overprescribe opioids and prescription painkillers. So they got addicted to that, and then once they didn't have access to those prescriptions anymore, went to the black market and started taking heroin, and people are actually dying because of that. Are we having a discussion about what we're going to do to the pharmaceutical companies? Of course not, because they're people in power, right? They're people who have the money, they're the people who have the ability to do whatever the hell they want without any consequences. We're talking about drugs that actually kill people. And there's no consequences for that. But when it comes to marijuana, which does nothing but give you joy and happiness, we're going to go after her? Really?
Context of White Supremacy, Gus T Renegade, in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the system of white supremacy. Today's date, Tuesday, October 11th, 2016. So I have been told. Again, we'll be here every day for the next week and a half. Just tune in, normal broadcast time for all of the programs, generally 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. So just tune in if you get constructive information from the cows. One other quick comment. I just wanted to make sure I stated again for the record. In my view, any non-white person, really anybody, but particularly for non-white people who have had, unflattering, discourteous things to say about recently deceased prosecuting attorney in Brooklyn, New York, Ken Thompson. People who, were upset with what happened in the Peter Leane case. Anyone that is like name calling him and talking bad about him, like hours after his transition, that is beyond a demonstration of anti-blackness. That is total absence of black self-respect, and I'm sure that is something that Dr. Frances Cress Welsing would look at and shake her head and say, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Regardless of what you think about what he did or didn't do, it certainly cannot be anything constructive moving towards problem solving. It certainly cannot be an acknowledgement or reflection of black self-respect to degrade a dead black father because you didn't agree with how he responded to racism. Moving forward, our program for today, man, we have one of the most dangerous folks in the Northwest Hemisphere. She is facing 10 felonies in Anchorage, Alaska. Man, dangerous person here. I think a lot of folks saw her in 2014 when she had a viral sensation when she left her job at KTVA in Alaska. I think that's a CBS affiliate, where she was reporting online about the cannabis industry in Alaska and acknowledged that she owned this site and said that she was going to move on to help end prohibition against cannabis and continuing with her enterprise, and said F it as she exited stage left. She has since done a lot of really outstanding work. I would have to give credit. The website, it's amazing. Lots of just really thorough, really well-researched information about cannabis and all aspects of cannabis in terms of legalization, uses, what some of the issues are around the effort to legalization, getting into word use and what was written into the laws in different states, how they differ, what's coming up with the elections. It's going to be on the ballot in several states, including California, coming up for the November election. Really great information at her website, and she even talks about her own situation, the arrest and what she's facing in Alaska. Really great to have her on the program to kind of get her views, hear what happened to her, and if she is indeed, as she states, if this is an example of a modern-day lynching. Joining us live, our guest, Miss Charlo Greene. Miss Charlo Greene, are you with us?
I'm here.
Great. Great. Thank you so much for sharing some of your time. Really looking forward to hearing some of your views, hearing what's happened to you. For our listeners, I know some folks, this might be their first time hearing from you. Anything that you think it would be helpful for people to know about who you are, the work that you do?
Well, I created the Alaska Cannabis Club. Still to this date, it's Alaska's only safe access point. Beyond that, I'm the executive director of Go Green. Green is an acronym for Grassroots Elevation Through Education Networking summits in a number of different cities for free, where we pull in different cannabis community leaders of color and ask them to share their knowledge and experiences with communities that need this information in order to take advantage of all of the opportunities that the end of cannabis prohibition is presenting. The economical opportunities, the medicinal value in cannabis, all of that needs to be shared, and it takes those of us that know to step in to these communities and share that information. So that's what that organization does. I also host a cannabis talk show. Our main broadcasting platform is Facebook. We've reached more than 33 million people since we started this summer. And it's a really great show. We have a lot of fun on there and share a lot of really cool information. And we're producing a print companion, Her Flower Magazine, this winter to go along with that. So that'll be printed quarterly. You'll be able to order it online on a printed version or a digital copy. It's up to you, and I have a few other business endeavors, but that would take a lot of time. So, yeah, I've just been working.
It shows. You can visit her website, her name, charlogreene.com. charlogreene.com. Right. It's linked in the description for the program. You can visit her YouTube channel as well, Charlo Greene Live, and you can see a lot of the videos. A lot of that stuff is on the website anyway, so you can just go there and you'll be taken care of. charlogreene.com. For people who have not seen you, you are a black female, is that correct?
Yes.
Right on. This program, C.O.W.S, Context of White Supremacy, I use the two terms racism and white supremacy as synonyms. Use the same definition for both terms. The definition I use is as follows: a global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as not white. Do you think such a system exists? Do you think that definition is accurate?
I'm sorry, the phone cut out near the end of that. Whom they classify as what?
A global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as not white.
Yeah, I would say that's accurate.
Okay, right on. Before I get to some of the questions, just to reiterate, really awesome work, the website. It's really well done and super informative. I think if you go there, you'll get lots of great information. She had a great talk with a whole panel of folks in Colorado where they were talking about some of the issues around racism even after cannabis is legalized in different areas. Really great information. The hard work shows. I was very impressed.
Thank you.
You were born in Anchorage, Alaska, is that correct?
No, I was born in Austin, Texas. To be correct, I don't know if you would consider me technically black. I'm first-generation American. Both of my parents were born and raised in Nigeria. So that's that. But I was born in Austin.
Born in Austin. Do you classify yourself as black?
Sure. I know that's what the rest of the world sees me as. But I also know that my heritage is like from Nigeria. I'm just one generation removed from that.
Okay. At what age did you migrate from Austin to Alaska?
I was about 7 or 8 years old.
Okay.
Second grade. Hmm.
What was it like? I looked online. It's like I think the population of black people in Alaska is like 5% or less. Like it seems pretty low. Were you like the only black person in some of your classes or in some settings?
Yeah, definitely.
Wow.
But it's in high school that the time there were only 6 high schools across the city, so it's a really, really diverse population. You'd be surprised how diverse it looks and feels. And while there might only be 5% of the population that's African American, it might all be that we're more concentrated in the city, so it feels like there's a lot more than that. Well, not a lot more, but more than that.
Was racism an issue when you were growing up at all? Being mistreated because you...
No.
No?
Not growing up. So I think that's why so much of what's happening has come as a surprise to me. I used to brag about how forward-thinking people were up in Alaska, but I may have just been shielded. I may not have been threatening then.
That is interesting. Now that you're older, have you seen any reports that suggest racism is a problem in like Anchorage specifically?
Outside of what's been going on with me and how the media portrays the communities that have more people of color living in them, no, it's nothing like down south in the Bible Belt or what I've seen down there. I went to college in Texas, and that's where I've seen like overt racism. So comparing that to this, it's not like that.
What did you see in Texas?
And just like people yelling, "Go home," N-word out the street just randomly, and like a night out with friends, like that sort of thing.
Wow. Okay, that is
Yeah.
pretty
it's like racist, right?
For sure.
Compare other stuff to that. No, just outside of my own situation where it's blatant how I've been portrayed by the press, which I was a member of. I'm being called things like ghetto and trashy. And it's like I was just your news anchor.
Oh, so this is on like your former station, KTVA? They referred to... I'm sorry?
No, it was just like, have you guys forgotten? It wasn't that long ago. I'm sure you have something TiVoed. I remember you by name. We worked alongside each other. This is ridiculous, but that's just what it is.
And this was your former network where you worked?
No, not my former station. They've actually, I'd say they've been the biggest station about the situation out here. Seems like the other ones really have a chip on their shoulder about it. It seems like my former station has really taken steps to rise above everything that's happened, and I appreciate that. I really loved that job before I quit. It's just I was being called to do something more important.
I think that might be something that a lot of people don't know. You went to school for journalism. Like you were, as you stated, you were enjoying your career as a reporter and took that seriously, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I got my degree. I worked as a news anchor and journalist in the southeast region of the nation after graduating from college for about 5 or 6 years before I moved back up to Anchorage, Alaska. And then about a year into that job is when I did that I quit thing and stepped away from that.
Wow. And just before I move on, just with regards to how you have been portrayed in local news outlets, they've seriously, like on television or in print, like called you ghetto. What were some of the other adjectives?
Ghetto, trashy, a lot of she doesn't deserve to be the face of Alaska or Alaskan cannabis, and One news outlet actually got a drag queen to, I guess, dress up as me, and they took these pictures of her in like this prostitute's outfit. On a sidewalk, and like put that on the front page of their year-end issue that they distributed across the state. So, yeah, that's
I am
Alaska.
I am devastated. Like, I mean, that is why I'm so sorry that you had to endure that. And some of that, in my opinion, our guest, Miss Charlo Greene, if you go to her site, very attractive, beautiful young lady. So I'm sure some of that is just being upset seeing this young, super attractive young lady trying to get things done and having the audacity to walk away from her job in such a flamboyant manner. But not to like gawk at something that I view as a total act of racism, but do you have like screenshots or images of this saved so people can see?
No.
Oh man. Just having that sort of, that sounds pretty close to like Texas, you know, just flat out just calling you a nigger, in my opinion. Do you?
It does. It does, doesn't it?
To me, it's the exact same thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd say that I would prefer that other stuff because at least it's like casting. This is like calculated stuff that they're trying to do to damage not just my reputation but my legacy. It's unfair, and this case is another instance of all of that.
Wow. What, just so that people get all the particulars, I was being a bit sarcastic in the introduction, talking about, you know, what a dangerous guest we have on the program today. But in all seriousness, you are facing 10 felonies, 14 offenses in total, and if convicted, like maximum 54 years. Is that accurate?
That's true.
Okay. Can you kind of break down like what the most serious charges are, and some of this, like this was like a months-long operation of surveillance against you, unbeknownst to you. Is that accurate?
It was really long, yeah.
Oh, can you share some of the details?
Possession with intent to distribute marijuana. That's what each of the felonies is, all 10 of them. It's just the same thing again and again and again and again and again.
Okay.
And each carries a 5-year penalty for it. So all of it's cannabis. And mind you what, this time cannabis was already legal. We had already legalized it. So yeah.
Cannabis being legalized in Alaska in the end of 2014, like November, and your arrest situation came in early 2015. Is that correct?
No. September of the next year is when they press charges.
September. So is that September 2015?
Yeah, we legalized in 14.
Okay.
The charges were pressed in 15.
Okay. And they had, like, undercover enforcement agents had been coming to the Alaska Cannabis Club, I guess, to purchase?
Right.
Okay. And I think it's important for, I guess just because you said the 10 felonies, they are for distribution of cannabis, that I guess these undercover agents that came to the Alaska Cannabis Club, they never purchased anything from you. Is that accurate?
That's right. And what we are is a collective or a co-op, so people can't just walk in off the street. There's actually a process you have to go through to become a member. And part of that process is this contract where you become a part owner of the collective, and you're allowed to contribute and take from the collective whatever it is you need and cover that with donations. So that's what the officers, they went through the process and became members, and traded among other members, never with me, but because I created the club, they're basically saying if a restaurant drops something into someone's food, then you'd be able to sue the owner of the restaurant as opposed to the server. So that's what they're doing with me, is charging me for all of the club members' cannabis.
Wow. And just so that we can get a sense, like how many people were members at this time of the Alaska Cannabis Club?
Maybe during the first raid, I'd say we were probably around 1,000 members.
Okay. And this is 2015?
Yeah.
Okay.
March.
And how many times was your residence or your establishment raided?
Twice.
Twice.
Once in March, once in August.
Wow. And can you talk about what happened during the raid?
It was like it is in movies. The cops were all in their SWAT gear, and they banged really, really loud at the door. It was kind of odd, extremely odd. It was during club hours, so we had, I think, 3 or 4 members, along with volunteers. My siblings were helping out at that time, so they banged on the door. We opened it right before they swung the battering ram into it, and they had all of their weapons drawn, and it felt like a stick-up. A lot of yelling. It was terrifying watching, like, people that you care about, people that you created this place for, that close to having their lives cut short if they were to flinch or react. It's something that no one should ever have to experience, especially not for a plant that's out here killing cancer and saving lives.
Wow, I'm so sorry you had to endure that twice. You and other residents, people that you care about. I'm counting that. It, to me, at least suggests 2 acts of violence: the imaging that you described earlier, and dressing up someone and putting that as an act of violence, and then this also seems like an act of violence to me, which you experienced. Do you think they would have done this same type of violent assault if you were white?
Of course not.
Another act of racism. So they did they stop you, like, at any point and say, okay, we're raiding your establishment, you cannot function anymore? Or did they just come and take property and what have you and arrest people?
They just took property. They didn't arrest anyone or leave any of the paperwork that they were supposed to. It was literally just like we had just been in a stick-up.
Wow.
Yeah. It wasn't until after the second raid where I pushed my attorney to get answers, and she said she'd have to contact the Attorney General. And I figure that makes more sense than me not knowing when the next time a dozen people in masks and guns are going to run into my house and hold up my family members. So that's what she did. And then they pressed charges immediately after. She went looking for answers.
Wow. So they charged you, I think you said they pressed charges in September of 2015?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you supposed to have, is this going to be like a jury trial, or is this just going to be a bench trial?
Definitely jury.
Jury trial, okay.
Yeah, with all of the voters that legalized cannabis in 2014, they're going to have to decide whether they changed their minds about sending people to jail over a plant that they also voted had medicinal value in 1998. So, we'll see.
And is this, the trial is going to be in Anchorage? The trial, is it going to be in Anchorage?
Yes, most likely.
Okay. Are you concerned at all? I think there are a lot of whites there. It could potentially be a lot of white people on this jury, probably not a whole lot of black people. Does that concern you at all?
No. I have more faith in the people of Alaska, of Anchorage. We've already decided where we stand on this. So if things end up where the jury looks nothing like the community I come from, I can still rely on the fact that if they aren't at least concerned with my own personal liberties or the medicinal value in cannabis, they would be concerned about the fact that they would waste more than $6 million on housing and feeding and clothing me for the next half century when we're in an insane budget crisis here in Alaska. So, I mean, it's lose, 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 except for whoever it is that might have some personal vendetta, some personal motivation behind all of this. Everyone loses if I end up having to go away.
Are you concerned that the news coverage that you talked about that's been so flagrantly biased against you, that might impact potential jury members?
Absolutely. As a journalist that used to write those stories, I know the power that it has. So it's just on me to keep them on their toes. What's funny is I reach just as many, if not more people, with my own broadcasts that I do on Facebook and on my social media. So I have my own platform to share my side of things, and if against them to keep them in mind so they aren't effing with my life, then that's what I'll have to do.
Context of White Supremacy. Again, our guest, Miss Charlo Greene. The website, charlogreene.com. YouTube, Charlo Greene Live. What is, where are you at in the process? When is your next court appearance?
November 30th.
November 30th. Is that when
they've given me more time to find a new attorney? So that's when we'll reconvene and see where I'm at in that process. And I'll like to get more time, so the case will probably start next year.
Wow. Okay. That's something I will be following that myself. I will encourage and just look for updates, because you talk about this on your blog, so people can just go there and get updates and what have you, where you're going. It's on the YouTube channel as well. So this is something I'll definitely be following and encourage listeners to follow as well. What do you make? I'm sure there are some folks who will say, well, hey, yes, we legalized cannabis in Alaska, and that's what Ms. Greene is charged with, but she got ahead. She went ahead and did this before we actually set up rules to publicize how we want this to be done in the state of Alaska, that she got ahead of those rules, and so that's why she's being punished. What would your response be?
I'd say whatever punishment there is should fit the crime. If there are no victims here, then it doesn't make sense. Jail is a place for people that are a threat to society. It's not a place where you throw people that threaten your stake in some business endeavor. The fact that our police are out here working to protect people's investments, dollars and cents. They're out here acting as tax collectors, as bill collectors. I think that should be concerning to everyone. So that's what I would say to that. I'd say that's a really poor current lack of liberty.
Context of White Supremacy. May I ask how much your bail was?
I was never arrested. I was released, I guess, on my own recognizance.
Oh, okay. Do you have people? I know you at least have one person. In your YouTube video, you talked about a friend of yours, I believe a black male, where he was saying that he felt that this was retribution against you being kind of what I said before, this, beautiful, smart black female quitting on air and just being uppity black person. What do you make of people who say, hey, this is retaliation for what you did?
And say, you might be right. You might be right, but I know at the end of the day, whatever is going to happen is what's meant to happen, and it's on me to make all of it matter. So that's what I'm going to do. Whatever happens, I'm not going to stop working toward change. If they want to make a martyr out of me, then they can do that. But what I stand for, what me and many others are working toward, greater equality, greater liberties, that's not going anywhere. So, that's what I would say.
Have you had anyone challenge you? Because you described this as a modern-day lynching. Have you had anyone, confront you and say that is absurd for you to even make a comparison like that?
No.
I'm asking. I have heard other people.
No. I wish someone would try and explain to me how it's not. Like, seriously, really? I decided to help people when no one else would. And I didn't just start the club after we legalized. This happened months and months prior. The club is responsible for legalization. So for me to have stopped more than a year after we had already been in existence, already helped nearly 1,000 people, asking me to turn my back on them because we legalized cannabis, that wasn't an option. That doesn't even make sense.
Right on. Well said. It's been my experience sometimes that when black people in particular say that, some act of a black person being mistreated, Michael Brown, Tamir Rice saying that is describing that as a lynching. I think even Clarence Thomas invoked that language when he was going through the congressional hearings way back when. But I've heard frequently people contest that and say, that's ridiculous, this is nothing like an Emmett Till, that sort of thing. But I thought great job giving the explanation. I guess you also have talked about, at least in the video, you talked about how you got so much attention when you left KTVA, but you did not get the same type of rally of support when news of your pending charges came out. Has that changed at all? I know USA Today, they did a report on this, the Young Turks. I saw some other outlets. Has that changed at all of late?
Yeah, absolutely. After The Guardian did the story on me, it was like going viral a second time. I really appreciate the fact that so many people are outraged at what's happening to me, and the fact that they know it's not just me, it's happening to so many other people. I mean, imagine the fact that I'm so visible and I have the means to find an attorney. That usually isn't the case when it comes to people that are facing cannabis crimes. So it's happening. So it really sucks to be in the position that I'm in. But I know good can come of it. So I appreciate the fact that The Guardian did the story, that it reached the right people, that they would continue sharing the story, yourself included. And just got to keep sharing it. It's outrageous, and they're hoping to hide what's happening. They're hoping to hide the shame that they should carry. So for doing this to me, it's disgusting. So that's what I'm going to continue working to do, is sharing my story, sharing what's happening to me, which is what's happening to so many others, and sharing how we can change that. So, what's up?
Right on. Thank you for sharing it. It's, as I said, I know a lot of listeners were familiar with what happened to you. There's one other thing about just going back a little bit. When they did these raids, on your residence 2 different times, did they do body searches of the people at your residence at the time?
They did. The first raid they did, they detained everyone illegally. They did full-on body searches, forced everyone into photo lineups, I guess you could call it. It was really, really weird. It was really invasive, and nowhere in the warrant did that allow it. And how I know that there was something so off with it is because the second time none of that stuff happened. So all of that should be raised. If I had a decent attorney, then I'm sure that would be brought up. If I get one, then I'm sure that will be brought up. We'll see.
Wow. Is it okay for me to ask, just to kind of gauge the impact, like how much you've had to spend in like legal fees and just any funds that
legal matters? Around 20 grand.
Wow. And that with a hearing coming up later this year, and the trial is not even starting until, you said, likely 2017.
Yeah.
So
that's with my last lawyer taking the money that she was paid to take my trial through its completion. Her just saying that she spent it all and that she's not continuing on with my case.
Wow.
After filing only one motion. So that's Alaska. She's going to work for the state now.
Wow. Was this a white woman?
Yeah.
Do you think that could have been an act of racism? Because if she said she was going to do your whole case, she was going to take it through the trial, and then she doesn't do that and just leaves after taking your money, do you think that could have been an act of racism?
I'm still trying to get to the bottom of it.
Wow. That is economic terrorism. That is a term I've used on this program before. That would seem to be, and the time and energy, I guess, is it okay if you can process it somehow, like how much time and energy, aside from the financial aspect, have you had to expend?
More than a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you remember how many different court dates or police things you've had to do in association with this?
Maybe a little over a half dozen.
Wow.
Around 10 different court dates. Yeah, and then more than a year.
Wow.
Of all of this stuff. So it's really, really not great.
That sort of consuming resources and time and energy of black people, that's something that I've noted, that standard practice in the system of white supremacy, like just finding ways of taking our time so that we can't be doing what we want in our lives, in our existence, and then taking resources, which has the same impact, just whittling away so you can't do things that you really want to focus your time and energy on.
Right.
And I guess people can, if they want to support your legal fund and what have you, they can go to the website, charlogreene.com. Is that correct? Oh.
Hello?
Oh, yeah. I said if people want to support your legal fund, they can go to the website, charlogreene.com.
Yeah, you can head to charlogreene.com. There's a link right there on the homepage. But I'm all about creating just new more forward ways to advocate. And so one of the things that I found to be like a big stress reliever is writing and recording music. So leading up to my actual trial, I travel a ton. So I'm just going to be like focusing on traveling and touring and doing music. So that's a way to do that, just connecting with the people that are supporting me. So I'll be releasing a couple of tracks at the end of this week.
Awesome.
And a few videos in the coming weeks. And they talk a lot about what's happening with my case. It's conscious. It's good stuff. I think you'd like it.
We will be looking end of the week and over the next few weeks for the videos. I think that's awesome, finding some outlets, because I know it is. I can just imagine the amount of stress in dealing with all of this. I'm glad you found some creative outlets to replenish yourself. Can you tell our listeners about the Minority Cannabis Business Association?
Yeah, the Minority Cannabis Business Association is it's a great organization. It's a nonprofit, and what they're really working to do is empower communities of color with cannabis, the opportunities economically that cannabis presents. So the board members are doctors and business owners and advocates, and it's a really impressive group of people. And you can head to minoritycannabis.org to find out more information about that, the next events that are coming up, and when they'll be in your city, and how you can get involved.
Grand. minoritycannabis.org, the website, and it's making sure also, do they do just making sure that non-white people are aware of business opportunities, changes in the market, so that they have this information, so that they can, it seems like this is going to be, lots and lots of money being made as legalization proceeds. Is that one of the functions of the group as well?
Absolutely. But they take it a step further and put action along with it. So in addition to educating people about the opportunities, they also are working on organizing job fairs and bringing in employment recruiters. They're also having different things like expungement clinics in Oregon a couple months back. The first one was held, and what they did, now that Oregon has legalized cannabis, one of the laws states that people can have cannabis crimes taken off their records, which opens a lot of people up to employment opportunities. So they teamed up with Natural and held a expungement clinic, and were able to get more than 50 people take care of the 50 people's records, getting those crimes taken off of them. So that's what the organization is about: education and action.
That is pretty awesome. There was a report that I played on the program earlier this year, and it talked about how there's so much money being made from all this, and black people specifically are being excluded. Amanda Lewis, she wrote the report, and they said that right now that they were looking at the dispensaries nationally, and they said that it's about 1% of the dispensaries, and there are over, I think, 3,500 of them nationally, that about 1% of that is owned by black people. And she was talking, looking at the laws that are in place in the areas that have allowed for these dispensaries, that they have put a lot of laws in place that exclude black people from being able to be involved in this industry and make money. Does the group also address ways of addressing that and neutralizing that?
The group doesn't currently do that. That's more what my organization was doing, is going out and reaching out to these communities and working on the justice aspect first and foremost. As great as the economic opportunities might be. You can't access them if everyone is in prison over weed. So addressing that is one of the biggest things. People are getting cut out of the industry. That's by design. After they've already been put through the system, again by design. So it's up to us in these communities to demand the change that needs to happen with that. It's not going to be some outside force that's going to swoop in and save the opportunities to rectify the wrong that's plagued our communities for decades. It's going to have to come from us. So reaching out and educating people about what's happening, how we are being cut out of this, how there are other ways to get into the industry, starting ancillary businesses, even when the laws are written that aren't in our favor as far as participation is concerned. And then just standing up and deciding enough is enough, voting no until they get it right. I think that's what needs to happen. Don't legalize it. If the law is cutting you out of the future of the industry, just say no. They're cutting you out, and you have to say that's okay to happen. If it's not right, don't support it. There will always be next year and the year after and the year after to try. But if we're talking about the adult use of marijuana, or that would still mean that anyone possessing more than an ounce of cannabis could go to jail for 6 months. That there are still cultivation limits that would send people that have been growing privately to jail now. I don't know how that's legalization. I just don't think that's what we should be settling for when we have the opportunity to fix so much. So it's on voters to look out for that.
I know that situation happened in Ohio this year where they had legalization on the ballot and they voted it down because exactly what you're talking about, limiting access for people to participate. It was very centralized, as I understand it, the way that legislation was written for Ohio. Are you familiar with I know you are resident in Alaska, but are you familiar with how the bill is written for California that's going to be on the ballot this November?
Yes, I've read it a couple of times.
Okay. What do you think of that, how that one is written? Is that one that you would support?
No, it's garbage.
Wow. What are the problems that you see?
Well, like I stated, jail time is still not just a real possibility, but that's what it's going to be, 6 months still for cannabis possession over an ounce. An ounce isn't that much weed, at least to me and many, many, many people I know, especially patients. So that's a big one. Another one is the fact that 20% of tax revenues are going to police. I don't see why, if we're no longer making cannabis like a criminal thing, if we're legalizing it, we would be cutting the police a massive check every year to go and buy new toys and weapons to go and enforce when communities that have been harmed most by prohibition are getting $10 million a year, and that's not each. That's spread across the entire state of California. And I think that's capped at $50 million, so that stops after 5 years, while police will be getting, what's 20% of a $10 billion industry?
Is that about $2 billion?
So it would be the tax on that $2 billion. So that's hundreds of millions of dollars every year. and then our communities literally get peanuts. Like, what does that say? I had to stop myself from swearing there. I don't see how them dangling weed in our faces and saying, hey, we'll ease up a little. And no, in fact, they won't, because it'll make smoking in your car completely illegal. So whenever they pull you over and it smells a little bit like weed, that's not just probable cause. It's you just committed a crime and they're investigating it. So don't expect that stuff to go away. It's lose, lose, lose all across the board. There are so many holes in it. When you look at what's happened in Washington State post-legalization, when you look at how people of color are still being prosecuted disproportionately in places that have legalized, and then you look at the legislation that's being proposed in California, it's clear justice is the last concern. And it's also clear that someone's been compromising of what our communities are supposed to get that is not from our communities. Someone else is giving away the justice we're supposed to get along with legalization and bartering that off for, I don't know what, bigger pensions for police that are murdering us. I don't understand it, but I think we've got to get to the point where we
With the California legislation specifically, is the expungement aspect there for people who have been convicted of cannabis-related crimes, can go back and have their convictions and what have you reassessed or expunged from their record completely? Is that component in the California legislation?
No.
Okay. That just everything that you just shared, Ms. Greene, that's why I said her website, it has so much information. I was so impressed going through your site. But just what you shared right there, those are the exact concerns that I have, that I guess if I was going to just summarize, that even the big push that I hear when people talk about legalization is that the war on drugs has been racist and black people have suffered, which I totally agree. And they said if we legalize cannabis, then that will, begin to mend these wrongs. And I'm like, I do not believe that at all. Like, I live in Washington State. I'm just like, nothing about what I'm seeing looks like it's making a dent at all in anything that is being talked about in terms of this is going to somehow mitigate racism, or at least racism in terms of enforcement of drug laws. And I find that to be laughable. And I mean, brilliant explanation for those concerns. And in my view, it's not surprising that that's the way things would be written, so that not only do we not benefit from a justice perspective in terms of, okay, I'm not a criminal anymore and I get my voting rights back, or if I'm in confinement, I get released, or whatever that would mean, and we're being closed out of making all of these millions and millions of dollars. It's just like, this is not... That's
all it is. It's a commercialization initiative. It's all right, these group of people that we select now get to do this, but everyone else continues going to jail. That's what all of the laws that are being passed now look like.
I think the one in California is going to pass. Do you think that the way it's written now, I think it's going to pass? Do you think it's going to pass?
It has a lot of money behind it. What's funny is 90% of cannabis activists agree it's one of the worst ever, but they know that there's money behind it, so everyone's just kind of falling in line. It's like Donald Trump, Hillary, Prop 64. You choose.
Do you have do you have a concern about like bigger conglomerates? I know in California they've talked about a lot. They have a lot of small market growers, and now you're going to have more larger mass marketing that might drive out some of the smaller markets. Do you have a concern about that as well? Or?
My concern is the fact that there are people in communities that have relied on cannabis like commerce, and we'll call it the free market, for years and years. And after legalization, at the behest of these new business owners, police will go and work to enforce whatever laws there are on the books, and penalties are going to be as maxed out as possible. It'll look a lot like what's happening with me. That's it. That's my concern, is the people that rely on it and have been for years and years and years are suddenly going to find themselves like new criminals, new targets. So that's that. There should be some sort of craft license, something that would allow everyone to participate. If lawmakers, legislators were serious about ending the drug war and taking it out of criminals' hands, then they'd be serious about providing a way for people to participate. But that's not it.
One of our listeners mentioned that a few weeks ago. He's heard my commentary about, I think racism will still be practiced in a variety of ways, even if they legalize cannabis. This is that they're just not being truthful with a lot of this. And he said, you're leaving out, black people who are selling right now in what they call the black market, how they will be excluded and lose a source of income. And I only thought, at least in my experience, that a lot of the people that are selling cannabis, like that's not like top tier money in my experience. Like a lot of people end up selling just to support their habit, or maybe they make a little bit, but it's not like mega profits. Do you have a different assessment?
Yeah, there are plenty of families. There are generational families, especially in places like California, that rely on cannabis and have generation after generation. So yeah, and while it might not be a lot of money to you, a few $100s to someone that doesn't have it is quite a bit. So to still lose that means of income would be devastating to some. So it would also be that much more devastating if they lost that means of income and then were criminalized after voting to legalize this substance.
$100 is certainly significant to Gus, for sure. Try and get that underlined. And absolute well said, point well taken, because I think that has been a part of the rhetoric as well, that we need to be serious. When I've heard like people in Congress or wherever speaking about this, they've been pretty uniform in saying, oh yeah, we got to be tough on the black market. If we're going to do this, we're going to allow this. Like we can't have, the black market still raging while we've legalized. Like I've heard that pretty uniformly. I suspect that's going to...
They're saying that, and so the police have been conducting raids across Colorado, especially in places like Colorado Springs. Then they'll publish these stories about how there's this huge marijuana bust and how they found dozens of plants in this black market operation. What they're doing is they're passing these local ordinances that say, regardless of whether you're a medical patient that has a doctor that has said for years that you need 72 plants because you're extracting the cannabis oil from it to treat. We're limiting every single house to 6 plants, regardless of how many people you're a caregiver for. So these are patients. These are like sick parents. These are parents of sick kids. And they're being arrested and losing custody of their children and having their names dragged through the mud because what they passed wasn't about justice. It was a commercialization initiative, and anyone that gets between the potential to profit most from that dollar is literally finding themselves at the other end of a gun paid for with their own tax dollars.
Context of White Supremacy, Charlo Greene. Did you have, is it possible to take a few questions? We had callers dialed in, wanted to ask a question or two. Is that okay?
Sure.
Let's see. Thomas in New York, who brought up the economic impact of legalizing cannabis and then people that are in the quote-unquote black market being shut out. Well done, sir. Thomas in New York, did you have a question for Charlo Greene?
Yes, I did, Gus. And first I wanted to say thank you for having the show. Ms. Greene, you became a hero when I saw you walk off the news program that day. That was brilliant. I loved it. My question is, well, first is, what percentage of the people in this cannabis club are white?
I'd say 80%.
80?
Probably 80. Yeah.
Wow. And when you when you started this, you knew it was illegal. So did you ever think that it's a possibility that I would get caught doing this? Like most people who sell drugs in America, in the lower states, they know that there's consequences that come with doing that. Did you ever think of that?
Well, I thought about that, which is why I opted not to create a private patient association, a place where members could come in, where medical marijuana card holders could come in and exchange cannabis with other card holders. What I'm being charged with is creating that space. So did I think I would face a lifetime in jail for creating a space, a legal space for patients and consenting adults to come together and take care of each other's needs? No, I didn't think that was a possibility. But here we are.
Okay, and my last question is, do you have any regrets? Because essentially, I like your idea, and I don't think you deserve 50, 40, any time in jail. But do you have any regrets? Essentially doing this for 80% white people who practice racism against black people all the time. Do you have any regrets that this is what you could be facing doing this for white people? And
I don't know that it would be regretting doing it for white people. More so doing it for people that aren't willing to stand beside me in my time of need. That's regrettable that I invested a lot of energy in thousands of people when only one person showed up to my court hearing. I wish I would have invested it in somewhere that was more of a community that would have embraced me instead of me having to work against the grain. It felt like constantly.
Well, one question, Gus, do you think they would have abandoned you if you were white?
No, absolutely not.
Just a more subtle form of calling you a nigger, in my opinion. The caller, thank you, Thomas in New York. The caller at 2755. Did you have a question for Ms. Greene? Caller, last four digits, 2755. Are you with us? We are not here. I don't know if you hit your mute button or... Do you have a question or are you just listening?
Hello there.
Greetings.
Oh, this is Miss Meds, guys.
Oh, greetings. Good to hear from you.
Greetings. I appreciate and I'm loving the show tonight. I think that's very unfortunate what was just said about the people of the collective that are not helping you. That was going to be my next question. What do you... well, you said the white people aren't helping you. What would you think they would be doing for you if you were a white person?
I don't think I ever would have been raided in such a violent manner twice, I think I would have been called in for like a meeting, a conversation actually, like a human being, as opposed to just being treated like some thug that must be armed to the teeth. So let's send 12 officers in with massive guns, all masked. It's just absurd. I don't think I'd be in this situation if I was white.
Yeah, I think you would probably just have a fine and they would be on their merry way. Or
I'd just be like a celebrated hero, and I would have gotten some flack, and they would have used how I modeled the club to draft new regulations and set the standard. That's probably what would have happened. It would be a complete 360, I think.
I agree with that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. One more question, if I could. This goes back to when you were working at the news station. Or fear of your job because you were a smoker, or did you have to take a urine analysis? How did that work?
No, I never had to take a urine test. And in Alaska, if you don't take a test before you're employed, they can't legally test you during the course of your employment unless you have like an accident on the job. So I knew I was never at risk for that. And at the onset of the job, if I needed clean urine, I could find it. Any smoker usually has that covered, and so did I. So it was a non-issue, really. Just keeping my cannabis life separate from my news anchor life, with me working like 70 hours a week doing that, and then leaving the secret weed lady after I would get off work. That was more tough, balancing the two.
Very, very interesting. Mm-hmm. Out here, I suffer from sickle cell, so I have been an average smoker since I was 18. In fact, when I started smoking, I didn't know that I was doing it for medicinal purposes, but I've learned a lot about cannabis since then. I was always in fear of my job. I was a dental assistant, and so I always had to do these bouts where I had to not use for a while, and then sometimes the place where I worked at, all of a sudden the rules change, and there are random UAs, and I'm in fear for my life. So I think that's also maybe a thing that's locking a lot of people out of employment, or at least out of the employment that they want to have. That's amazing that that's not an issue in Alaska, but I thought I'd ask you about that, and I mute my line. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The person that dialed in 2899, caller at 2899, did you have a question for Ms. Greene?
Yes, Gus, this is Ramon Springs, and I wanted to ask her, where did she hear that grows were being busted in Colorado Springs?
Where did I hear it? I actually know a couple of women that are suing the city of Colorado Springs and the state because of it. I do a lot of traveling, shooting for my vlogs, so that's a story that I'm going to be sharing pretty soon. But they share firsthand experiences of what this sort of thing is like.
Are these black or white women?
They're white women.
Okay. Another question I wanted to ask you is, you said only one person showed up. Do you mind if I ask you who that person was? So you're hearing.
I don't know if you would want me stating his name, but he was a Hispanic gentleman.
Well, I'll ask a better way. Was it your? My understanding, are you in a relationship, and was it your fiance or boyfriend?
No, he didn't show. I'm not in a relationship, and I wasn't dating anyone at the time, and my ex didn't show up.
Okay. And another question I had is, were you the only owner of that facility? The sole owner?
No, not technically.
Well, ma'am, here I'll say it better. I'm definitely not trying to get you to say something to incriminate yourself. I've been through your situation 5 times over. So basically, I'm just trying to see if I can get some clarity and maybe even offer some helpful information from, I've been through that scenario myself.
Mm.
So the reason I asked about, if there was any support from your family or boyfriend is because, I'm not trying to disrespect your situation. It just appeared to me when I went and read your story and went on your site about a week ago to read what was going on. It appeared a lot of your viewers was attacking your relationship with the white
man. What about the relationship?
Well, I would want to know, is he standing with you? Is he supporting you through this? Is he offering financial support as well as more?
No, we broke up a long time ago.
Okay. And I did want to share this as a means of saying that. I don't know where those cases took place at here in Colorado Springs. I will say this. I'm a former friend of a Grove farmer here in Colorado Springs. Matter of fact, he helped write those laws. Helped write those proposals for the petition. And I can clearly tell you that he had a felony for cocaine. And I asked him myself, how did you manage to become a legalized grower with your background? Gus said it earlier about expunging, but the state of Colorado, you can only do that. You can expunge, but according to them, you can only get involved based on certain type of felonies. And he had a possession with intent to distribute. So I just wanted to encourage you that, that game is definitely not set up for us. I've seen too many incidents since it's been legalized that shows me that everything Gus has said to you, it is just a higher form of white supremacy being practiced. And too many people here are starting to try to grow within their homes. The law says you can have 12 plants, 6 in bloom and 6 not. But those people are doing a lot of that. So I think some of what you're hearing is illegal grows, not that I'm defending them. So I think some of that is what you're hearing. But I just wanted to give you encouragement and tell you, being there before, I faced the 5 to 99 in the state of Texas. And I just want to tell you is the best thing you can do is really, really just stay on top of your attorney and see everything in your discovery to help you out. And I'll mute my line, Gus.
Thank you, sir. The person who called at 5234, did you have a question for Ms. Greene?
Greetings to Gus and greetings to you, Mrs. Charlo, is it?
Charlo Greene.
Yes.
Oh, Charlo Greene. Sorry, Mrs. Greene. I do apologize for that. Yes, I did have a couple of questions for you. The first one was, do you think that part of the legalization process in these states is part of the creation of this is to lure black people into the marijuana trade in order to set them up, similar to how it seems like you've been set up in this situation? Because it seems to me like I've watched documentaries about cannabis legalization, and I've yet to see a black person that's directly involved as far as owning. And I've seen a lot of news about different black people who did get involved, and they all got in trouble with the law. So I just wondered if you felt that, part of the process of this legalization is to attract black people that they can then arrest and basically terrorize using the legal system.
Yeah, I would say that might not be too far off from what's actually happening.
Okay, thank you. My next question was to piggyback off of Thomas in New York. Do you feel that the white people that you were helping were practicing a refined form of racism, white supremacy? Because I say that because simply the same white people that you were helping, you're now fighting for your life, and those white people that you directly had a positive impact on their lives, they're now nowhere to be found, and you're left basically, to whatever fate the system throws at you. So do you think that all along they might have been practicing a highly reformed type of racism, white supremacy that maybe you did not perceive in that moment, and now that things have happened the way they are, you're seeing who they really are, in other words?
To say they were practicing it would mean that it was conscious on their part. That is, I don't think that's the case. I think most people are ignorant to their what they perceive as superiority. So I don't know. I try to look at people and just give them the benefit of the doubt as much as possible. I like to believe in people as much as possible, even though that doesn't always work out too well. So I don't know why none of them showed up for me. I just know they weren't there. And again, it was just one person that did show up for me, a Hispanic guy. There are plenty of black club members. There are plenty of Asian club members. None of them were there.
All right, thank you. And my last question is, since the previous caller did discuss the negativity and vitriol that you received as a result of your dating a white male, do you think that part of the reason that this situation was focused solely upon you, because you did say earlier that you're not the sole owner of this facility and this facility, do you think that because you were dating a white man, that might have angered them to the point where they came specifically after you and did not really, go after anyone else? Because I do know white people do get quite angry when white people date outside of their race. So do you think that could also be a part of the reason why you're experiencing what you're experiencing? And thank you, and I'll mute my line. And again, I wish you all the best. I really, really do, and I'm going to try and stay on top of your situation. So I do wish you all the best, okay?
Okay, I appreciate that. Do I think me dating him had anything to do with where I'm at now? I've never really thought about that. The thought never really crossed my mind. I wouldn't put it past the situation, though. It's just so absurd. It feels so backward. So, is that a possibility? Yes. Have I thought about it? Has that possibility ever hit me right in the face or been blatant? No.
Appreciate the question, Roz. I'm just trying to make sure I'm remembering correctly. When the question came up about the help that you did not get from all the folks who were members of the Alaska Cannabis Club, and you said at the time it was about 1,000 people. You did say at the time it was about 80% white. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Just keeping in mind the proportions of membership in the group. The caller.
Yeah.
Is this? Oh, I think we got everybody. I think we got it. I think this is just Thomas in New York. You didn't have another question, did you, Thomas? Thomas?
No, I had white people interference. They dropped me, so I called back in.
Oh, okay.
But last touch on the questions, my extra questions, and I once again touch. I wish you all the luck. I don't think you deserve a day in jail. So unfortunately, under the system of white supremacy, I just wish you all the luck.
Well, I appreciate that. Thanks for having me.
That was Thomas in New York. He was just expressing his gratitude. We did have one other person that dialed in with a question. Ken Steele, did you have a question for Ms. Greene?
Yes, Ms. Greene, it's a pleasure speaking with you. I thought it was very revealing listening to your answers to the original questions that Gus posed to you earlier in the call. I remember you mentioning, discussing your classification as black, and you mentioned that you are first-generation Nigerian American. I, too, am first-generation Nigerian American. Quick question. Which tribe?
My parents are from Uppity, and they speak Ekpe. We're not Igbo.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's usually what people ask. But Ekpe is what my mom said I should tell people when they ask that.
With Igbo, so that's very interesting. I also wanted to ask you, did you see yourself as being somehow different from Black Americans because you're first generation, and if so, how?
I do. I think a lot. Well, there aren't too many Africans up here, but most that I've met in my adult life would agree. It's just a different. I don't know if it's just the generations of having to deal with like the bullshit that I'm being put through now. Like this stuff wears on you, and the fact that this is as good as it's ever been for Black people in this country, I would have to think that would wear on the psyche of the generations that are born into this. So I think that's probably where the difference would come from. I just I don't know. I feel like I might look at things a little differently. I know what I'm willing to stand and fight for. I know what I'm willing to die for. You know, the situation that I'm in, it's unfortunate, but it's nothing that I can't bear, and I know the cause behind it. So I don't know. I don't know if that makes me different because I'm African or just because I'm me.
Okay, you know, I think it's really interesting, and I think you might find this interesting about me. I, too, have been in a marijuana-related no-knock raid. And I remember my particular situation happened while I was attending Michigan State University. This was Michigan, and this is East Lansing is the city that is between Okemos and Lansing proper, and it's kind of a Lansing. The whole area has a history of being a sundown town, which I later found out. And I was in a house that had people in it that had been convinced by an MSU law student at the time to accept a package of marijuana containing 1.6 pounds, and this is what I found out afterwards. And I had no involvement in any of this. I just happened to be in the apartment at the time. And I do remember during the raid, the guns that they had were, I believe, they had submachine guns, MP5s, if I do recall correctly, and they had an M4 as well. These guys were not dressed in full tactical gear. They were actually dressed as, I guess, kind of hippie-ish. There may have been a joke or something like that. I don't know what they were doing. But that was the gear that they were using. When they started questioning us, I turned on my Nigerian accent extra thick to kind of, I guess, differentiate myself from the other gentlemen that were located inside the house. And my reasoning being is that I've been told by a number of people who classify themselves as white that they view Nigerians or Africans somewhat differently than they view, I guess, Black Americans. And, this is just something that kind of was a little bit automatic for me in that instance. I thought about it kind of, but I just started doing it. And it did work for me in that instance. I was allowed to go home, and I was not implicated in any of the wrongdoing. And this was after they had contacted my probation officer at the time. My college years were kind of in those days, and I found myself in a lot of trouble as I'm thinking that you may have found yourself in a similar situation. My question for you is, how come after the first raid you didn't stop? Because the raid that I was in was extremely terrifying. I mean, this was life and death in your face. They had Call of Duty-esque weapons, and that caused me to even... I fled the state for a number of months following that incident. How come you chose to stand your ground?
Because I know I'm not doing anything wrong. If I was doing anything wrong, they would have arrested me. This place was created as a service. Beyond expanding membership to recreational users after we legalized, the first 1,000 members or so, the raid only happened like 4 days after we opened membership up to adult consumers and not just patients. So everyone that counted on the club, most of them were literally in life and death situations, and we were the only resource. For me to shut down, that would be inhuman. That would be wrong. That's why, because it was terrifying. But I wasn't that scared. I'd say I'd be way more scared on Judgment Day, when I'm faced with blood on my hand from the patients that needed me, me turning my back on them because of some imaginary law, because of paperwork that had yet to be filled out, that had yet to be created. It's absurd.
Hang tight, Ken. We had one other caller that dialed in who wanted to get a question in as well. Retired firefighter in Florida. Did you have a question for Ms. Greene?
No. Related anything yet? Because I just literally got on the line. I watched. Not watched, but I read the briefing on the young lady. She was a journalist, and she resigned to go into the sale of marijuana. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and in turn, somehow she got pounced upon by the white supremacists, and they are threatening to send her to prison for a long period of time.
Correct.
Well, that's the global system of racism and white supremacy. I don't have a question right now, but hopefully, I'm pretty sure she hears me. Hopefully, she can get out of that. I pray that she does.
Well, I appreciate that. So I think we nabbed everyone. Ken, did you want to get in your last question, sir?
Yeah. Just a follow-up to that last one. I didn't, to your last response, I didn't anticipate you evoking this. You mentioned Judgment Day. Are you, do you have any sort of religious affiliation at all?
No. I was raised a Jehovah's Witness.
Okay.
But after I grew up, I stopped attending. practicing that. But I pray a lot. So
okay. And then also, quick question: your parents, throughout all of this, how have your parents reacted to both the incident where you left your employer at the news station to the charges that you're facing now?
I saw the news. It had gone viral at that point. This was like a day later, and someone published their names in a post, and it reached them all the way in a village in Nigeria. So she called me and started freaking out. And she came around about a week later after she just calmed down and looked at the situation for what it was, and that it's just trying to help people. She's a registered nurse, so she understands there's medicinal value in that. And so that was that. It's breaking their hearts to have to watch me go through this. It's really unfortunate what it's doing to everyone in my life.
That's terrible.
Oh, man. I'm so sorry to hear that. One other last interesting tidbit that I see kind of some parallels.
Is this a question? Is this a question?
Oh, you know what? I'll hold this comment for later. I'll mute my line. Thank you so much.
For sure. We had a listener write in. He said, knowing everything that you know now, if you had it to do all over again, would you have chosen to go this route in life as a new profession, or would you have chosen something else?
Well, nothing else would have caused me to step away from a career that I loved at that point. I love doing music now, and we'll see how responsive all of you guys are to that music. But that's like my escape. That's what I want to do. Most of mine have a lot of jobs. So the fact that I'm able to go and write and vent and record, that's it's everything. So maybe I would be doing that instead, but like my activism and everything I'm going through, it's led me to music, so I wouldn't have come to that conclusion without everything I've gone through.
Okay. Hope that answers your question, caller. Some quick questions I did want to ask just about your cannabis consumption. Like at what age did you start to regularly consume?
Around 21.
21. Okay. And do you consume every day?
Yes. Many times a day.
Many times. Okay. What like if you give us an average, like what's your average rate of consumption per day, like in grams?
Maybe an eighth, 3.5 grams, 4 grams, maybe 2 grams. I like smoking backwoods, and it takes a lot of weed to fill them. I mean, I don't really have to monitor my consumption. I just always have weed. I always get free weed from people, which is always really great. But yeah, I'd probably say an eighth, a little over an eighth a day.
Wow. Okay. And do you consume every day?
I do.
Every day. Okay. When do you remember the last time that you did not consume for a 24-hour period or longer?
Yeah, I think I took a tolerance break sometime earlier this year. Yeah. No,
Okay. Appreciate the honesty. Do you, in your experience, the time, you're 28 now, is that correct?
I am.
Okay. So you've been smoking regularly for 7 years-ish? Something in the ballpark of 7 years?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that the cannabis substance, do you think consuming it has some addictive properties?
So anyone that uses cannabis as an excuse as to why they aren't taking care of their responsibilities is doing just that, using it as an excuse. But that has nothing to do with this substance that is changing lives for the better every single day.
Do you think with some people well, I'll put it this way, do you think that for a significant number of people who consume cannabis that there might be an issue with them being addicted to the substance, like they will really want to consume and that sort of thing? Do you think for a significant number of people that could be a problem?
Well, if we're going to be real about this situation, what we can easily do is look at the science that's been conducted, and cannabis has been found to be less addictive than coffee. So I'm not any more concerned about their coffee consumption than I or anyone else should be about their cannabis consumption.
Well, I live in Washington State, right where the Starbucks was founded. So there's a lot of coffee. I don't know with that, and I do encourage our listeners to pay attention to metaphors. Very important. At least I get the impression that a lot of coffee is consumed, like worldwide, on a daily basis. That might be something to be concerned about. One of the other aspects that I have raised with non-white people, in addition to just the phenomenal information you shared earlier about how in a lot of the states where they have legalized, the laws or the way it's been done perpetuates racism in a variety of ways, excluding black people from the cannabis market, and not correcting the war on drugs terrorism that has been committed against black people in the form of incarceration and what have you. I think also it is a concern in a system dominated by white supremacy. I say every program, sobriety would be best, alcohol, cigarettes, whatever, just because war is being waged against us all the time, and we really have to take that seriously. And I just think it would be best to function sober as much as possible. And I also think that cannabis can, for some people, it can have some addictive qualities to it. Does that make logical sense, or does that not seem reasonable to you?
Have the addictive qualities. The habit, any habit can become addictive. Does it make sense to not go somewhere where you know there might be trouble? Yeah, absolutely. But should people, especially the ones that are cannabis is being used to treat PTSD for our soldiers across the nation and beyond. But even in our own communities, especially in our communities, there are people dealing with PTSD. And while African Americans may not be as proactive when it comes to addressing psychological health or mental health, smoking cannabis is something that treats PTSD, the trauma that comes with living through a raid or witnessing the loss of someone that you care about, street violence, gun violence, all of that stuff. It leaves a mark. And while a lot of people think they might just like to smoke, many people are self-medicating. Should they have to lose that bit of comfort living here in America in 2016? I don't think we should have to, but if it means that or loss of life or liberty, then it's a decision that each of us has to make ourselves. But that is kind of what it is right now. If you pick up the cannabis plant and you are a person of color, then you definitely are risking your freedom and your future. It's just a fact. It doesn't matter if you're living in a state that's legalized or not.
Well, let me say this, and just get your response if it's reasonable. In a system of white supremacy, non-white people, I would assert, especially black people, because we're being constantly injured, constantly subjected to all types of violence, we're often in a state of self-medicating and dealing with those traumas. Do you think it's reasonable to have concerns, almost like alcohol? A lot of non-white people, a lot of black people consume alcohol as a form of self-medicating from the traumas of racism. And a lot of people have raised concerns about the availability of alcohol concentrated in areas with a lot of black people, that could happen with cannabis as well, that racists know we are suffering and are going to be looking to self-medicate, that it could be black people just end up being heavily promoted with the use of cannabis. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but you also have to consider the fact that no one has ever died from cannabis consumption. No one has ever driven high and killed like they would after consuming alcohol. Cannabis only ever heals. It causes no harm on the body, not even with combustion and smoking. So I don't think it's fair to compare the two. It's like saying, well, there are all these pharmacies. Should we be concerned about something that's only going to bring good to our communities because there's another substance that's dangerous, that's very dangerous, that people might not be able to have a handle on? No, I don't think we should limit penicillin. I don't think we should limit people's ability to get access to what we know is a life-saving substance. Only a life-saving substance, period. That's what it is.
Do you have a code for how you consume cannabis? When I say like a code, like I saw the video right when you were talking about when you got denied, turned back, trying to cross into Canada because they, I guess, found some residue in your, I think, on a sock or in your purse. And you said from now on, if you are going across the border, what have you, you would get a brand new purse to make sure that there's no residue, so that that's not a problem. Like, so do you have a code about things that you do, things that you don't do, places you consume, places you don't consume? Do you have a code with your cannabis consumption?
Sorry, the phone cut off during that last bit.
A code about your cannabis consumption. Do you have a code about it?
No, I really don't. I just kind of do whatever I want. I don't really try and put anything I do into any kind of box. I don't believe in superstition. I don't have a bunch of weird rituals for anything. I love smoking great weed, so I do just about whenever I feel like it. And this is with me waking up at 4 or 5 every morning, running a couple of miles daily, and running all of my companies and still being able to create as an artist while fighting for my life in this case. So yeah.
Like, do you consume outside or in your vehicle?
I consume literally wherever I feel.
Right on. Just trying to make sure I understood. Got it. The caller at 2899. Did you have a question for Miss Greene?
We'll take this one.
Hey, what's up, Gus?
Oh, yes, ma'am. No problem.
Hey, Gus. Before she got away, I just wanted to actually ask a couple of things here. Did you get the definition of racism, white supremacy from Gus at the beginning of the show? Because I missed the first 30 minutes.
I did.
Okay. How did you feel about it? I didn't get a chance to hear your answer to it or your response.
I think I said that it sounded fair. A group of people trying to oppress others based on nothing more than the color of their skin. Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. will you continue to do business with white people after this? Meaning directly, meaning in your actual circle, will you continue in
yeah, absolutely. I didn't do what I did because I was expecting anything back. I did it because it was the right thing. So regardless of whether anyone shows up for me or not, I know I'm doing the right thing, and I'm going to help people regardless of the color of their skin, regardless of whatever might make me and that person different from each other. I know cannabis can help people, and if I can connect them to that, then that's God's work.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is because your answer sounded more like, they could be buyers of your product, but I'm asking, can they have a direct footing in your company or your business structure to be as someone that would be on the paper or someone who would be in charge or someone with some type of delegation that should be looked at in the same manner you would be looked at? Would they have that role in your company in the future?
Would I hire? Is that what you're asking?
No. Will they have a direct position of control, decision-making, or some form of delegation for authority in your in your company's next venture? Will you place white people in those positions of decision to function in your company?
Well, I know I won't base it on just color. The last people that I had in different roles, or the only people that have ever done me wrong directly in my company, have been people of color. So I won't base my hiring decisions on that. Otherwise, I wouldn't hire anyone black based on what I've been through.
And my last question is very simple. Do you have right now, because you're on bond, am I correct?
Sorry, the phone cut off a little. What was that?
Do you have any bond stipulations, meaning do they have requirements for you not to smoke or drink while you're going through your case on bond?
No, I'm fine to smoke and drink. That's not a thing.
I want to share this with you since you answered that. I'm sorry for cutting you off, because I'm going to get off after this. I'll just share this. As when I was going through that, it was told in moderation is the word that they use. But I would encourage you to at least give Gus's advice on sober while you're doing this case, because they've been known to do this to many people in drug cases. They'll take a UA when you get ready to go to your PSI, your pre-sentencing investigation. That right there will have a heavy burden on your sentencing or what they consider to do to you. Then I'll mute my line.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Before we let you go, I guess if I could just ask that question, has that been addressed in like Colorado, Washington State, other places where they've legalized? If you are convicted or you're out on bond or that sort of thing, where they have stipulations in where you can't consume cannabis in a state where it's legalized, does that get changed or?
No, the stipulations are still on the books. There are places that are taking steps towards that. I can't remember where it was, but I believe the prisoners may have been granted the right to consume medicinally upon release, but I'll have to double check that. I know in other places, like DC, they're getting cannabis removed from the list of substances you're allowed to test for as an employer. So that is progress, and that's happening in a place with a huge minority population. And so, like I said again, it's the communities that have to stand up and demand more. Now is the time for change. It's just we have to take initiative and make that change and put that work in. But because they're doing that in D.C., they're seeing the change that they want to see.
The website, charlogreene.com, charlogreene.com. Her YouTube channel, Charlo Greene Live. Hopefully we will have the phone situation corrected next time, so it won't be such a hassle for folks. But I definitely enjoyed having you on the program this evening. And if allowed, it would be great to have you back on once you have things have evolved a bit with your case to kind of get an update on how things are going. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners will be following, so I will definitely keep in touch. We'll be looking for the new pieces coming out this week. You said new videos coming out within the next few weeks. charlogreene.com. Thank you so much for sharing a bit of your time with us, and we will hopefully speak with you again soon on the program.
All right, sounds good. Have a great day, y'all.
Thanks, you too.
Bye.
Good evening. Context of White Supremacy. Charlo Greene. Lovely Charlo Greene, one of our listeners, just texted that in as well. I would definitely encourage listeners, visit the website. She has a lot of information. Like, she has a lot of different guests with a lot of different types of expertise. Some of the conversations are directly about racism. They had a summit in Colorado, I think it was earlier this year, where they had several different people on the forum, including Ms. Greene, and they talked about a lot of what she shared in terms of places where they are doing legalization and they don't include expungement, or you still end up with a lot of black, Charlo Greene, you still end up with black people being arrested for all these cannabis offenses at way astronomically higher rates than anybody else, whites or non-white, non-black people. Somehow they always got to find the niggers to, harass about this thing. How that sort of thing is still happening. Just a lot of different aspects of racism, but a lot of, she does her homework. Lots of kudos. I was very impressed with her website and the information that's there. It's very thorough, very detailed, and even with the exchange at the end where I asked about, is it reasonable in an environment of white supremacy where black people especially are going to be traumatized like instantly, where racists, because they are dedicated to practicing racism, we know the niggers are feeling bad. We'll just stick lots of things in the environment so they can self-medicate, so you'll have lots of alcohol available, lots of cannabis available, or whatever else, television, other things that people use to self-medicate as a result of white terrorism. Is that a reasonable concern? That's one, that is one I would definitely think about. You can kind of, whatever conclusion you come to about that, in my view, I think that's certainly something to keep in mind, particularly if, this is a habit-forming thing, like I'm going to have cravings for this. Even if it was coffee, we can take this out because I think that was compared. Even if we were talking about coffee, in my opinion, and I think for a lot of people, the caffeine in coffee is addictive, even that should be something that, we think about. I very much subscribe to what Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Said. We already have a lot of problems as victims of racism. Let's try to do everything we can to not increase our needs because we already have a lot of needs that are not being met. So even if we were talking about coffee, if drinking, coffee for the next week, now I'm going to need coffee or crave coffee every day and have to buy coffee for my coworkers who I despise, or be asked to buy coffee for my racist coworkers or colleagues or what have you. If that's what it's going to get me into, maybe I should rethink this. I think the same thing should apply: alcohol, cigarettes, cannabis, anything that is going to make me increase my needs as a victim of racism. I think that's something that should be thought of. But you can put that on the back burner. Go back to the section where Charlo Greene, where she talked about how the way the legalization is happening, it is just reinforcing another form of racism, white supremacy, where they can still go around and arrest, terrorize, assault black people, a la Charlo Greene and others. They can still just go around and do the same thing. That's what I've been saying the whole time. Like, the whole premise of this, just to me, is very, very faulty. I am not about the war on drugs. I am about the war of white supremacy that is being waged against black people. That's what needs to be stopped. Racists can stop the quote-unquote war on drugs and just continue terrorizing and assaulting niggers, and that's about the size of what I think is going to happen. I probably will reference, it'll just be Charlo Greene from now on when people talk about that. I think it's total not. A lot of this would have to be premised for this to work. A lot of this would have to be premised on, are whites going to do the correct thing? I will not even say anything else. Now, I also thought it was significant. We heard again today whites being classified as ignorant around racism. And I said that yesterday. This is not anything that's specific to any one person, any one victim. This is very widespread. The notion that either white people are stupid in general about everything and or whites are ignorant about racism. I contend that both of those are false. And that's why a lot of times, even though it wasn't stated today, to me at least it seems on some level it could be another where we drastically underestimate the nefarious capabilities of racist man, racist woman, racist child, the depths of their pathology. It seems that we consistently underestimate what they are doing to us, to our detriment, Just pointing that out again, consistent. I'll probably get more opportunities over the next 11 days that we'll have consecutive programs to point that out again as we go with whites and non-white guests coming up. Really enjoyed having Charlo Greene on the program, thanks to the listener who reminded me about her situation with the update and everything. I saw when it went viral when she left her job back in 2014, and then the arrest and the charges and everything. Definitely enjoyed having her on the program, and I was serious about that. I will see if we can follow up for the trial. I think she said 2017 when her case goes to jury. Man, knowing what I know about racism, white supremacy, I would be nervous if I was in Anchorage and she said this is going to be a jury trial and it's over 60% white in Alaska. Like, I could easily see, and particularly if the prosecuting attorney, if, they're out, we're going to show this, nigger and get on television and embarrass us. I could totally see them manipulating it where you end up having, 10, 11, maybe even 12 white people on the jury. And, we will be following. If we're here 2017, whenever the trial goes down, we will definitely follow, and I will follow up and see if we can get her back on the program to see how all this. I would be nervous. I will definitely include her in my prayers. She is absolutely gorgeous and extremely well informed, great information. I do not think anybody should be going to jail, even given my views and what have you. But man, I wish her the best, but I would be super nervous facing a jury that is going to likely have a lot of individuals classified as white. Anywho, we should be here tomorrow. Anthony Morgan, black male. He's an attorney. He focuses a lot on racism, white supremacy. We'll talk about this issue in Canada. They're also talking about legalizing there. We'll also get his thoughts on a lot of the shootings that have taken place in Canada. Black Lives Matter Toronto, how that has impacted the dialogue on racism. His favorite film is Bamboozled. We'll bring that up as well. Some of his the other work that he's been involved in. But he'll be here tomorrow. Again, we're on every day until a long time from now. We'll be here every day, normal program time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific for all programs. Folks who dialed in, if y'all have any comments, great questions. We did have a little speechifying today, but a lot of folks had other commentary, I guess, to share. And I would get in again, sobriety would be best. And I'm never saying that from a moral position of judgment about anyone, any substances that we consume to self-medicate in response to all of the abuse that is heaped on us by the system of white supremacy. Is not from a position of morality at all. It is a total counter-racist business decision. The evidence shows that frequently a lot of non-white people end up having extra problems as a result of all of these different substances. I think very apparent. I do not believe that legalizing cannabis is going to stop those problems from happening as a result of whites practicing racism. Therefore, I think it would be best if we could make great decisions at all times, and really, as I've been stating of late, have our behavior reflect our understanding that war is being waged against us. I just don't think most people, when you conceptualize a professional soldier, I just don't think that your vision, your concept, your idea is of somebody who is intoxicated with a rifle and some fatigues on going out to do. I just don't think that most people, that's what you think of when you think of professional soldier. That's what would make a big impact, in my opinion. Sobriety would be best, and if you're going to consume, you should have a code about consumption. I thought that was important as well in terms of, okay, I understand I'm doing this. I understand that this could make some problems for me. I'm going to be very meticulous about when I do this, where I do this, to minimize the likelihood of this creating problems for me. It's my conclusion that a lot of black people consume and do not have a code. If you are going to consume, you should at least have a counter-racist code to minimize the likelihood of having problems with this substance. And I could be talking totally crazy. I don't have a website anywhere near as cool as Miss Charlo Greene. Then any of the folks who called in, did you all have any commentary you wanted to share?
Yes, can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
I was just, as I was listening to the rest of the program, I was just thinking about the code and the four things that Mr. Fuller says that victims of racism and white supremacy should think about. I know one of them was what are you doing? I think it's something like that. What are you doing? Why are you doing it? I do know one of them is what is the constructive value of what you're doing? Am I correct?
Constructive value of what you're doing, correct? Yes, sir.
Right. You know, and if you keep going over and over and over with those series of questions about just about every not just about, but everything that you are saying or doing, it kind of like would provide an excellent assistance in you having a life to whereas you would avoid a lot of problems that you otherwise would be faced with. Now, I mean, nothing is perfect. It just the encounters with enforcement officials, you still can get killed anyway. But you would lessen the percentage or the chances of you getting yourself in the position that she's in right now, I think. It's still. I just ended with asking this question: what was her motivation? It seemed as though she was doing something that could be considered to be very constructive as a journalist, and for some reason she quit the job to sell marijuana. It's something missing there for me.
I think she shared that she was able to help other people, that she did enjoy and value her journalism career, but she was able to provide cannabis for people who were suffering from a variety of ailments, and the cannabis helped them manage their symptoms and whatever health issues they were dealing with. So she said her mom is a nurse, so kind of continuing that tradition of being a healer. That's what she was able to do. That's what she's been able to do with cannabis.
I don't know. Maybe it's something wrong with me, but it's still something that's kind of like missing, because you can be a journalist and still help people and people with problems. I don't know. It just sounds like something missing to me with that. I did hear that she smokes on a daily basis. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I have to contemplate on it. I don't know. Maybe if I go on a website, I'll have a better understanding.
CharloGreene.com. CharloGreene.com.
Yes, sir. Okay. There's something missing there.
Should have asked. You had your Thomas in New York. Yes, sir. Thomas in New York. Proceed.
Oh. Thank you, sir. I think what's missing is she got into a relationship with a white person. Yeah, I think that.
You said a white man?
Exactly, and I think.
Oh boy, there you go.
Just based off of what she said, somehow she's running a club with 1,000 people, 800 of them at least are white. One person shows up at court. One person shows up at court, and he was a Latino. Unbelievable. You know the power 800 white people have. I mean, this wouldn't even be going to court right now. They all showed up. I mean, and then she was still doing it again. On having sex with white people will fry your brain for life. Okay, this is 2 straight shows. And it's like the people just don't have a grip of reality. I don't really think she agreed with your definition because she was, it's accurate, you know, but when she kind of came back with what she was saying, that wasn't what you said. I just think, man, that Area 8 activity plays such a role in her mindset, and she just doesn't see it. 800 white people. You know the power. 800 white people to end racism. If we get the right 800 white people, I mean, they could take over a country. I mean, 800 white people, that's so much power, and none of them show up to court to help you. And you're there exchanging weed for them, trying to help them get high. I mean, unbelievable, man. You're not a hero when you're selling weed. In America, you're a drug dealer. I mean, it's like, did you think of the consequences? Like, every drug dealer I know, they know that the possibility that they might not be coming home when they go out with those drugs or whatever they're going to do, regardless if they're just facilitating the house for the crack house, whatever. I mean, it's laws against that. It's unbelievable how her mindset is so warped. And when she asked if she would do it again, knowing what she knows now, she had to think. I mean, it should be absolutely no. These people didn't show, and after they don't help, 800 don't show up, you get raided again. Like, you still are helping them. Unbelievable.
Wow.
I just don't get it. It's all racism, but she doesn't see it.
Can I step in for a second, please?
One thing I did want to say, I think the person who could have best answered that question exited the...
Yes, sir.
I think the person who could have best answered that question exited the program, so I'd prefer if people are not answering yet, because everyone can do at this point is speculate and or guess about what motivated. I think she did share some about that at the beginning part of the program. And I am going to work to see if we can get her back, so folks will have an opportunity to ask there as opposed to guessing. I would also submit that evaluating logic, it is possible that, or even before I get to that, I totally agree that sexual intercourse with whites should not happen. It supports the system of white supremacy. And as I've said before, for years, it does turn the non-white person's mind to rot. Now, moving forward, with regards to her motivations, she can best speak to that. Maybe it had something to do with her white boyfriend at the time. I think she did say they broke up. Maybe it did not. She could best, answer that, and I think we would need more details to say definitively that's what it is. Just with her not being here, I think that would be accurate to include. Moving forward. Yes, sir.
Can I chime in, sir?
What's your comment?
I want to introduce myself. I have no reason to be anonymous. My name is Ramon. I'm out of Colorado Springs, and I want that to be known. I will say this. You asked her if she's addicted and how long has she abstained. That was a question to ask her. Am I correct?
I didn't ask her if she was addicted. I asked if she thought it had addictive properties to it. Okay. I did ask her, how long she smoked, when was the last time she did not consume for a 24-hour period. I think I asked her if it had any addictive properties personally. I think I did ask her something to that effect.
Well, Gus, if you were asking me this question, that's why I chimed in on that one. Mm-hmm. I've been smoking since I was 21, off and on, mainly because the restrictions of being on probation and stuff like that keeps you away regardless, if you want to stay free. So I'll say it that way. I believe, coming from a drug dealer background and a marijuana use, to answer that question for far voids in for her, but I would say she's addicted to the money. And to say you smoke an eighth, and I think she said a day. Okay, an eighth a day takes a lot of effort. Okay, woo! I can tell you, I smoke damn near an eighth a week. Right, but an eighth a day is a lot of effort. Okay, so if she doesn't know she's addicted is how I'm going to respond to that, then she needs to look into it. And there's no doubt that for someone to be on national TV saying fuck it to a job that is secure in her case, she had to be looking at the money. And I'm just going to be honest. I think her lack of her former boyfriend there, I'm going to tell you why. I went on and looked at her site before you. I didn't even know you were having her on here. I started reading, and I actually put a comment on her page. I believe it is what it is. I think he just said, hey, look, you're alone on this one. He may not have said that verbally or vocally, but his action says that enough. Here's another thing I have an issue with. Well, I don't have an issue. I'll say I think you did so well, and you probably got my email about Miss Marin yesterday. This young lady and Mrs. Marin sounds a lot alike, and I can't understand how she couldn't answer your question, or at least how she couldn't tie your definition about racism, white supremacy as a global thing being in Nigeria. I thought that was a act of denial in her own case. It doesn't hurt me; it just hurts her, and that's my comment to that, sir.
The people that we have not heard from at all who did not get to ask a question, the caller is 7722. Did you have commentary?
Yes, I did. There's a couple of things I noticed during the interview. I didn't have anything specifically for her. First, just the level of deception. I believe another caller spoke about how 800 white people, or so many percent, I think 80% of the club, she said, was classified as white, and how they just kind of disappeared. I mean, the level of deception that has to can just supposedly they were there to support and to help her just disappear. Again, racist man, racist woman. The deception is just on point, and just how. Secondly, I guess two things. Secondly, just kind of how it is a hunt for her. It's obvious that these people are trying to get her. I'd heard about her case when they originally dropped, and I was just shocked at how vicious this backlash is. It's so retaliatory to me how the white supremacists are coming after her. My third comment was just I also was raised with a similar religious background, and to me, the Ms. Greene sounded the whole interview. Well, I missed the first 30 minutes, but the interview was. I mean, she sounded like she was terrified. I mean, just at the brink, of course, which is to be expected in a system of racism, white supremacy. But with that background and knowing how her family relations, I'm also my family's from that part of the world, West Africa. The damage that can do to family relations and just the psychological havoc. I mean, I wouldn't imagine how she would feel, but the havoc that it'd be wrecking with her, I'm really concerned for her, and I do hope she gets through her situation safely. I'll take my call offline.
Right on. We have one other person I don't think got to participate at all. 2456. I did want to make sure I mentioned the portion where she talked about them putting out some sort of advertisement or what have you, where they got a transvestite to dress up like her and go out on a street corner. Like, wow. Tacky. Extra tacky. The person at 2456, did you have commentary?
Yeah, hello everyone. Was she the only one that ended up going to jail and getting some type of punishment for this? I mean, it was a group of them. Was she the only one?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. I'm rooting. Just go ahead and make it through. And at the end, I kind of came in at the end, so my apologies. But she was saying something about she would never hire a black person or somebody black. Maybe she had a bad time with black people at her workplace. Was that true?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I just had a couple questions. Thank you so much for answering my questions.
Yes, ma'am, for sure. I was trying to think of how to quantify 1/8 for people who do not consume, and I'm having a tough time. But as someone who has consumed a significant share of cannabis throughout life, that to me seems like a lot. Now, I do know people who consume quite a bit more, whatever. But to me, that does seem like on the kind of hefty side on a daily rate. Like, I can't think there's ever been a point in life where I consumed that much on a daily basis. Like, that is, I think that could last some people easily. Like, I think some people could smoke every day and not consume that much in a week. All right.
Right. Correct. An eighth a day is, I would say, balling. An eighth a day is.
An 6 or 7 backwards.
Right. Everyone is excited. Let me see. Roz in New York. Yes, sir.
Yes. Yeah, I thought that was pretty excessive too, and I have a feeling probably the stress she's under, like some of the previous callers were saying, due to what the racists are putting her and her family through, sadly, is probably what's driving that consumption. I'm thinking in my mind, just knowing how, like you said, we as Black people self-medicate in the system. I think that's probably, I could be wrong, but I think that could be what the driving force is behind that kind of consumption. My thing was, when I thought about how she answered my question, when I asked her, I said, well, do you think, the people that you're working with were practicing a highly refined form of racism due to the fact that they did not show up, when everything, hit the fan with her, they were nowhere to be found. And now you're facing, or just, the vast majority of your reproductive years, you probably won't even be reproductive by the time you get out, 54 years, and you're 28. Geez. I mean, and I said the same people who abandoned you are the same people now you're facing to fight for your life. And she thought about it, but I still don't think she made that connection between how they function. And then I also chimed in with the fact that, white people are vengeful. And I think part of the reason her white ex-boyfriend didn't show up is because he doesn't want to be associated with a Black female like that. And for it to come out and become public knowledge that he was actually sleeping with this Black female. And then also the fact that white people are retaliatory, like someone else said earlier. And the fact that, once they knew she was sleeping with a white person, that they could have set this all up. Because, again, 800 out of 1,000 people in that group are white. You are the sole Black person, and she's a beautiful, dark-skinned African female, and you're the only one that's going through this. You're the only one that this whole thing is centering on. And not only that, just think about the fact that she never sold a thing to anyone. The agents bought drugs at that facility, but she was never the person who they made a purchase from. So as far as like a direct crime, she didn't even do like a hand-to-hand sale for them to like throw the cuffs on and say, well, you gave us drugs and we bought it from you, so you're like, what happened to the people who actually sold the drugs to those agents? Nothing happened to them, and I'm pretty sure they were probably white. But my thing is and I think it goes back to what Thomas in New York said, once you sleep with a white person, I think your whole version of reality is just skewed. And unless you're the type of person who may have had sexual contact with a white person and you understand the ramifications of what that sexual contact has done to your life, and you do a complete 180 and say, okay, I'm done with that, and what I find is there's very few people that tend to think that way that I've come across. More than likely, your mind is going to be so messed up because, Jesus made love to you and Jesus looked you in the eye with those ice blue eyes and told you that they loved you or whatever. Their ability to really see things the way they are. And for all that she's suffering through, I just find that to be just a travesty and a tragedy that she's going through this kind of stuff. And even when she went back and said she would do it again, like dealing with these white folks, it's really like it's sad to me, and I really, really wish her the best because she seems to be an extremely strong person. She seems to have strong convictions about what she's doing, and I can totally understand that. But it's life-saving information. That's why I'm thankful for this show. And again, I'll mute my line. Thank you.
Yes, sir. The person
Hey, Gus,
who dialed
Gus,
in. Hang on
Gus, hold on
Hang on one
before you
second.
keep-
Hang on one second. The person who called in at 6900. Did you have a observation?
Yes, good evening, everyone. This is Jay out of New York. Thanks for the show, Gus. One thing that I noticed, and this kind of came from listening to the show the other night with Mr. Greene and his tragic relationship, Miss Natasha Marin, the show that you just had yesterday, and that was kind of a tragic situation in of itself, but it wasn't tragic. I guess I kind of put it that way. And Miss Charlo, it seemed like there's this constant need, or just from looking at the demographic of the people within all of the individual areas, they had this 60% and above white population that they seem to all be trying to fight to stay in good graces with. And I think mentally, even though they're going through these tragic situations, each of them seem to still be trying to stay in good graces, which is why they're saying she would still, work to be in connection with those individuals, still look to help Mr. Greene, even though he was going through his situations, being called nigger, whatever it was, he was still okay with it. Miss Marin stating that everybody should go out and be with white people, at least try it, and then try everything else. It just seems like once you kind of swell into this tragic environment, a way out of that darkness, and they just all seem trapped, is what I got from listening to these shows back to back. So I thank you for what you're doing, because it's such a help to me, which will be a help to my kids and to everybody else that's in my circle. But it's just amazing, excuse me, listening to these shows back to back and just seeing the detriment that it's causing, and how while they're in it, they just don't seem to see it. But that's all I wanted to add. Thanks for the call. I'll mute my line.
For sure. Just making sure I haven't missed anyone. Ken, did you get an opportunity to comment since Miss Greene exited?
No, I haven't. I just wanted to say, I know that we're not to speculate on why she did what she did in the manner that she did, but I will say that backwoods specifically, she mentioned that she smoked an eighth a day out of backwoods, and that is a rough smoke, and that can do untold damage to your mind. After one backwood, I can't think straight, I can't operate correctly, and I can't consume more than 2 backwoods or 2 Dutches in a day without feeling nauseous for a good chunk of the day. So I'll say that, if she's consuming an eighth a day out of backwoods, that is very excessive consumption. That's some of the roughest smoke that she's doing, and she should consider alternative methods of medication. Maybe take up yoga, perhaps. But this is definitely not the way. And I will say that, man, if she is listening, she really needs to reconsider the path that she's taking. For marijuana to have caused this much trouble in her life, for any individual, and for it to have gotten this far, it would require for her to have engaged in behavior that really went outside of the area of norms that I'm seeing here. And I don't know. I just I have to thank you, Gus. I wish I had a program like this when I was in college, just to kind of get my mind in the right area of thinking with respect to dealing with suspected white supremacists, because I think that is, along with the marijuana consumption, I think just her interactions with these people are causing her to behave in a way that is only creating more trouble for herself. And I'll say that in my lifetime, I've experienced a lot of what she's going through, maybe on a smaller scale, but I will say that one of the big things that was different about my life then versus now is that I had a tremendous amount of exposure to white people, and it definitely created a lot of confusion about the behavior that I was going through throughout the day. And yeah, I'll go ahead and mute my line from there. Thank you so much.
For sure. Caller at 2755. Are you with us, ma'am? Did you have commentary?
I just wanted to reiterate about what she was saying about how she smoked and ate the weed. I mean, a day, that's crazy. I mean, I know that she's the owner, and backwoods are are pretty rough. At least like switch to vaping or something. I also wanted to say I remember I watched a documentary on her that was on Vice. It was on YouTube, and the guy that she was dating was in that documentary. He wasn't like interviewed. Well, actually, I think, oh, you know, this is my boyfriend, but she was like in her room hugged up and kissing with him. And I thought the documentary was quite funny because this was about weed on Vice, and they blurred out all the weed, and like if people had blunts or joints in their hand, they blocked all that out as well. So quite interesting on that. But I mean, I wish her the best, and I think that she's something is going on with people that are not connected to the continental United States, that they just don't have that, I guess, the same experience with white people. Because she also did state that when she was living in Texas that she did feel it more. So I think maybe that is contributing to her being so loose and open with white people. Very interesting, Gus. Thank you for the show.
For sure. 2899, is this Ramon? Did you have commentary?
No, Gus, I was just trying to get onto your PayPal thing. I want to help you guys keep this going. I love what you're doing, but I'm having a trouble with your link, so maybe I can send you an email to ask how to fix it.
Oh, okay. Untiljustice@gmail.com, if you want to drop an email. Untiljustice@gmail.com. And
no, Gus, I want to make a donation, sir. I wasn't trying to be public with it, but your PayPal link is giving me some troubles. Is what I'm doing. Is what I'm finding.
Oh, right. I was saying just email me, and I can help solve the problem. If you drop me an email, will that work? If you drop me an email, will that work?
Yeah. Any way you could do it outside of PayPal, if that's not going to hold us up.
Absolutely.
And I'm done. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. You just drop me an email, untiljustice@gmail.com, and I will hook it up for you. I think I don't think we missed anybody. I think everybody who has a hand up got them. Again, we'll be here tomorrow, every day for a while. So this topic will probably come up again. I can only say I'm so glad that I had her on the program, because I think she did just a fabulous job of breaking down and getting into the details about what's going to happen when these states legalize. I think she said that she thought the proposition in California was going to pass. I think it is as well. And she talked about all the loopholes to continue attacking black people. And in fact, people there even are knowledgeable about this to some degree, just from how things have operated before and having an understanding of racism, white supremacy. They just had a report on NPR where black people in Oakland were talking about the way that they are hounded by enforcement officials that does not happen where whites live in Oakland, California. And they think this will continue even once it's legalized, because I think it'll pass in November. But I think she did a great job just sharing some of those details so that people can kind of keep that in mind moving forward, so that we don't get too excited. Again, I don't think anybody should be going to prison, not Charlo Greene or anybody else, for consumption or possession of cannabis. Absolutely not. But I do not think racists deciding at this point, now we want to start and legalize cannabis everywhere. I do not think that is going to end up working out to our benefit for many of the exact reasons that she laid out. In addition to, I also said, I think, just terrorizing people. I go back to the alcohol thing. We've, in The Half Has Never Been Told, Medical Apartheid, it pops up over and over again. We will get our enslaved black people, make sure that they can't think too clearly, make sure that they aren't too sober. Here, have a little drink. Here, have a little drink. I think racists are very good at that sort of thing, getting us to take whatever it is to self-medicate so that we are not seriously focused on eradicating that problem. And again, if you are going to consume, you should have a code about your consumption of cannabis. Sobriety would be best, but if you're not used to say that all the time on the program, I would say for alcohol, it should be the same thing for cannabis, because it's so obvious that we end up being terrorized frequently around this substance, just little things. I was even surprised when she said she just kind of consumes wherever she wants, whenever she wants. It is legal in Alaska the same way it's legal here, but just like with like a beer, you cannot just walk around and consume. Like I would be terrified about that if I had charges pending and to just be like out and I could be totally crazy, but to me in a system of white supremacy, that seems like you are really like taunting racist man, racist woman with something like that. But maybe it's a different environment in Alaska or what have you, and maybe I'm just, a little bonkers myself. Last comment before we wrap things up. We'll be here tomorrow. Anybody else, anything else they needed to get in?
Oh, yeah. Hello?
Thomas, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I just want to say something about Mr. Ken Thompson. Can I?
Yes, sir.
I've noticed this 2 straight shows, 2 straight days where you said that people have been very negative about Mr. Ken Thompson on the internet, which is sad because he's dead. And as you know, I'm not an advocate for black district attorneys. However, I don't think people really understand how huge Mr. Ken Thompson's job was. Just today in the paper here in New York, it gave a demographic breakdown. Brooklyn now has over 2.7 million people. 945,000 or so were black. I think the only other place in the country that black is Chicago. So this is where, if we're in a system of racism and white supremacy, you could imagine how racist Brooklyn is. Just off the sheer amount of black people they have there. Just think of where you live. If your city has 945,000 people, I doubt it. That's just the black people. So he had an immense job. And amongst those people in Brooklyn, they liked the job he was doing. A lot of the black people on the street. He did get a lot of people out of jail. They just did a highlight on him the other day. And I was looking at some of his accomplishments. And for him to be in a place where your hands as a black man is completely tied. I mean, all the power in Brooklyn goes to groups of white people. He did an excellent job, and he doesn't deserve to be ostracized in his death. And I'll mute my line. Thank you.
Well said. I would add, no black person deserves to be ostracized in death. I mean, you'd have to do something real bad. But for sure. And the thing that I've found, why I keep saying it, I think a lot of people, they are not familiar with the full body of Ken Thompson's work. They just know Peter Liang. I suspect a lot of people didn't even know his name until the Akai Gurley murder trial, and then it was Ken Thompson is a coon and a Sambo and blah, 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 blah. If you look at his body of work, I think a whole lot of people, you don't deserve to write a sentence. You don't deserve to write a semicolon of criticism about Ken Thompson, putting his record up against what you've done to work against racism, white supremacy. It is amazing. I found just reading about other things, random things, and his name would pop up where he helped get black people out of prison. It is amazing the things that he did in a very tough position, which would qualify for all of us. But yeah, I just find that to be extremely distasteful. That is like a 0 for black self-respect in my book. Roz and Ken, you'll be our last two, and then we will ride out. If y'all could be concise. Roz?
Yes, thank you so much. I will be concise. I wanted to speak about Mr. Ken Thompson as well. Just to mirror what Thomas said, I'm from Brooklyn, and I live in New Jersey. Just for my studies and about the state of New Jersey, I call it the Alabama of the North because of how racist it is and the fact that the state troopers, their outfits look like Nazi uniforms and how they treat black people. But I've had the worst experiences and the most intense white supremacist experiences in New York City and in Brooklyn in particular. So he's absolutely correct. I think Mr. Thompson should be lauded. He did a lot of phenomenal work because it's serious. It's really, really serious as far as the way that white supremacy is practiced in the city of New York in particular. And there's parts of Brooklyn to this day that I would call sundown towns. You don't want to be black and caught in those neighborhoods after sundown because they will kill you. So definitely, I would love to just pay maximum respect to Mr. Thompson and send my condolences out to his family and his friends. And hopefully, over time, we can work to shift the perception and understanding of this very important figure as far as fighting for the freedom of black people. Thank you, and I'll mute my line.
Ashe. And I think Ken Thompson put in measures to help along with not criminalizing black people for cannabis. I can probably pull that article up before we go offline. Ken, thank you. Thank you. Ken in Chicago. I don't know if you muted yourself. We're not hearing you. I thought you said you had commentary to get in.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Hello? Can
Yes.
I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I just wanted to conclude this program by saying, yes, rest in power to Ken Thompson. If you do the research, he has done a tremendous amount of work for the people of Brooklyn. And in his position, none of us know exactly what was told to him, what kind of meetings that he was privy to, or what kind of information that he had that caused him to be in this position to have the results of the Akai Gurley case as they were. And then, with that said, I just wanted to tag on to the overall theme of tonight's program by saying just because they say it's legal, it doesn't mean that it's okay or that we are allowed to do it. I have recalled several times that I've been in courtrooms where defendants have asserted that they have the right to smoke marijuana because they are registered or they have some sort of marijuana card. And I have seen judges, upon learning this information, place stipulation on their bail that they are not allowed to consume marijuana. So, Charlo Greene, be very careful with your consumption. All other victims of white supremacy, be very, very, very careful with your consumption. And again, just because they say it's legal doesn't mean it's okay for you. Thank you so much.
Ashe, well said. I did locate the article. In fact, I played this. It was just, that's why I said, Ken Thompson, I have forgotten. He has done so much stuff. I have forgotten things that he has done that were against racism, white supremacy. The Wall Street Journal published, this is from 2 years ago, most small cannabis cases are dismissed. Brooklyn's district attorney, Ken Thompson, decided this week not to prosecute low-level marijuana possession. I am sure many whites in that part of New York were not pleased about his decision with regards to that. Anywho, we will be here tomorrow with a different black attorney, Anthony Morgan, joining us from Canada. He has worked a lot dealing with issues of racism impacting black people in Canada. We'll get his thoughts on Black Lives Matter Toronto, cannabis legalization in Canada, and why Bamboozled is his favorite film. Same time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. If you have problems, I think I put the incorrect time on the Black Talk Radio site for today's program, so my bad if anybody was thrown off by an hour. Just made an error. I will make an effort to do better moving forward. But tomorrow we're here, normal time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We'll be here every day for roughly the next 2 weeks. The email again, if you have a problem, confusion, guest suggestion, untiljustice@gmail.com. Listener supported, counter racist radio. Invest if you think the program is constructive. The blog Racism racism-notes.blogspot.com, racism-notes.blogspot.com. PayPal button is in the top right corner. If you're not into PayPal, or if you're having problems with the link for some reason, drop me an email, untiljustice@gmail.com. I will state again, sobriety would be best under conditions of white terrorism. If you cannot do sobriety, at least there should be a code about how you are going to consume whatever your narcotic is. I would have to exclude cigarettes from that. That should just be done away with. You don't want to be on a schedule about that or anything. Just get rid of that. You don't want to give them your money, and you do not want to compromise your health with those. But with anything else, if you're going to consume, you should have a code about how you are going to do so to make sure that you do not make new problems for yourself. Certainly in this day and age, I would not want to be intoxicated at all if you're going to be out in a vehicle, driver, passenger. Even if you're going to be a pedestrian, you never know when today will be the day that you bump into a race soldier. Daniel Pantaleo, Darren Wilson, Daniel Holtzclaw, white person, badge or no, could be a dangerous, life-ending situation in a matter of seconds. I think most of us would do better in such situations if we are sober. That's it. Creator, we ask that you help us remain patient with other black people, victims of white supremacy. We ask that you help us remain patient with ourselves. Remind us to demonstrate the highest levels of black self-respect at all times, in all places, each and every time we are in contact with another black person. It has been time. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Cal signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed. I'm a victim, brother.
Problem. You're a victim.
Man, I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning.
Shut up.
The man has programmed my conditioning. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.